Nvidia is kind of the word that correlates with artificial intelligence. They made $10 billion in 2020, and in 2025, they made $130 billion. That's just a gigantic jump. Let's talk about Nvidia. We're not going to dig deep into the history of it all. They started in gaming, and then some people tried to use it to train AI models, and it worked well. And ever since then, they just grew, and grew. Now, to really assess whether this company, to analyze Nvidia and whether it's really going to grow in the future or not, we need to understand where they're making money from. What are the sources? And if you look at the pie chart, the majority of the money is coming from data centers. Now, let's dig deep into that. The money they are getting from selling their chips to data centers has a few customers, mostly, or let's say 50% of them, are in the cloud world. So 20% of this revenue, of this direct revenue, comes from Microsoft and only Microsoft. Can you imagine that Microsoft pays the fifth of the revenue that they're making, that Nvidia is making? That's just crazy. When one company does that, they paid around 30 billion for AI chips. That's just Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Google, they're Oracle as well. They're the highest paying customers of Nvidia, and they make the majority of this revenue. Put them away, and you'll see that Nvidia would slump a little bit in terms of performance. Okay, so now we know the customers of them, but are they always going to be customers? What are they using them for? Why is Microsoft buying chips? Why is Google buying chips? The truth is they're buying it to build data centers to improve their artificial intelligence platforms like Azure AI, like Gemini, but not the Gemini you probably know. If you're a consumer, you use ChatGPT, you might use Gemini, you might use Claude, and those, yes, they do need a lot of infrastructure, but the majority of money in the AI world or in this language processing world comes from B2B, as in business to business, and that's why they focus on Azure. Microsoft Azure, for instance, is direct to companies. Average people don't really know what that is. AWS, same way. Gemini is also focused on businesses because where businesses pay the most money when it comes to artificial intelligence. So let's continue this loop. It's what I'm going to call a paradox in a few minutes. So Nvidia gets paid for data centers from those big companies, and those big companies invest in B2B AI. And this B2B AI is for all companies in the world so that they would enhance their performance. And how would they do that? Oh, you can use Claude to build one of your financial models instead of getting your financial analyst to do so. And then bam, what happens after that? Layoffs. That's why you hear a lot of layoffs happening recently, because in all honesty, those models perform better than the average employee. And we've seen this nowadays with the biggest example is Claude Opus 4.6, I believe. And I personally tried it, and in all honesty, it performs better than the average and even a little bit above average financial analyst when it comes to things like financial models. That's just an example. But aside from that, this is what the businesses are using it for. Optimization, that's what they call it. But at the end, what it reflects in their financial sheets is less and less people working, less and less human workers in their companies. Just so that you get an idea of what's going on, Goldman Sachs estimates that 300 million jobs are exposed to the idea of AI automation. A financial analyst, as we said, could be changed with Claude. A writer, a business writer, a content writer, all of those, customer service. Airbnb is even using entirely customer service, and it's really performing well. All of this is at risk of automation or of AI automation. And this starts the series of paradox, as we would call it. Because here's what you probably think. So if it happens that Airbnb replaces a lot of its employees with AI, those people will not really have money and they will be laid off. And then how would they afford to pay for Airbnbs in the future? So are they really just in a loop where they are bankrupting their own customers? Is this happening with everything, with Gemini, with Microsoft, with all of that? This is where, if we go back in time, we look at examples like how the tractor replaced farmer jobs or a part of it, and then it created things like the suburbs and the highway, how the personal computer replaced the typing jobs, and it created Silicon Valley and all of that. So this is what is called the paradox of automation. Yes, people panic. Yes, what happens is usually not what they expect. People are usually surprised by the new jobs, new industries that are created. And that's why some of the people online would say AI is okay, like the founder of Nvidia. AI will create more jobs. It will not take more jobs, because these are great examples of how they are. But there are disbelievers of this. The disbelievers state, which is a valid opinion in how I see it, is that artificial intelligence is a little bit different than the computer or the tractor, because somehow it's a bit generic, isn't it? And it's much smarter than those inventions. So we don't really know what it can do. We don't know how. We know that a tractor can do things in the farm. We know the capabilities of a computer, but we don't know what AI can actually do. We know some of the applications of it, but not remotely what it could do, because it could do practically everything in theory. So these people say that that is the problem that we're having, and that's why AI is kind of dooming everything. And the only solution that they could think of is governments. Things like universal income or wealth redistribution. But the problem with these is that, honestly, these are utopian ideas. It's never been implemented before. Could be implemented, but it's never at this stage. So eventually, if the market continues as such, if Nvidia continues to grow, if AI chips continues to sell, if investments or spending in AI continues to increase as it is right now, although it couldn't, it has to stop at a certain point, because companies are not going to just increase their spending on AI till forever. If this keeps on going on and on, then people will lose their jobs. People will be a little bit having less money, let's say, and then eventually governments will have to interfere. There will be political unrest. They will say, we need this universal income. This is not going to work. And this is what's going to create a new political infrastructure, per se. But nobody knows how it's going to go. But let's circle back to Nvidia. Now, all of this happens, all of those scenarios, none of it kills Nvidia. Nvidia still is the sole producer of the AI chips that are the best in the world. No matter what you read online, at the moment they're the best in the world. And that's why they're selling so much. And even companies like Microsoft, like Google, like Amazon, they're trying to create their own chips, but they're not as good. And it's sort of like a Microsoft moment. When Microsoft created Windows, everyone had Windows. And it was so difficult to migrate to something else like Macintosh or like Linux or any other sort of OS in this sense. So that's why until this day, and for a very long time, Windows has been a very famous operating system. The GPUs or the AI chips of Nvidia run on their platform, on their OS, on their everything. They have control over that. So it's not going to be easy for Nvidia to lose a little bit of this market share. But they will stagnate. That's very natural. Companies right now are just crazy over it. Amazon is promising to spend around 200 billion. I'm not even sure if this number is correct from how big it is on AI chips in the future. And if this keeps on going, then eventually they're going to stop spending that much, because they don't have that much money for it. And that's when Nvidia sales are going to start to decline or to stagnate, per se, because they're going to pay their fees, they're going to pay their annual maintenance, they're going to get chips the same amount they do, but they're not going to be able to grow. This is the peak moment that they're having. This is where it's growing, but it shall not continue with this rate. Spending is just going to slow down. That just makes sense. So Nvidia is going to stop being the fastest growing company in the world because of how they are right now, and they will become the most important utility, per se, like how they're the energy of this AI market. So they're going to keep being a part of how important it is, but not the most growing company. This is unforeseen because we don't really know what sort of AI companies are going to happen or are going to be created, what sort of applications are going to occur. All of that is still a question for the future. For now, Nvidia is winning, and in the future, Nvidia is going to still win, but not as much. And that's a little bit of